You're nothing but a distraction, a gold digger playing the long game. And believe me, when I'm through, he'll see right through your act." Judith's words landed like cold steel. Her tone was casual, almost indifferent, like she was commenting on the weather, not tearing me apart. I sat frozen, my hand clenched around my mug so tightly I thought it might shatter. A part of me wanted to fight back, to speak up for myself. But I didn't. At the time, I believed that grace and patience would win her over. I couldn't have been more mistaken. I'm Sarah Miller, 26 years old, and I was engaged to Ryan, by far the most incredible man I'd ever known. Ryan came from serious wealth, a world I never imagined I'd have a place in. His family owned a large and powerful real estate business, and he was next in line to take it over. None of that mattered to me. I was raised in a modest but loving home, and I'd worked hard to make a life for myself as a preschool teacher. Ryan saw me for who I truly was, not for my bank account. He made me feel loved, understood, and safe in a way I never had before. But his mother, Judith? She saw me as a threat from day one. She believed I was chasing his inheritance, and despite my best efforts to be kind, warm, and respectful, she made it very clear I wasn't welcome. Judith's disapproval was never subtle. It lurked behind every backhanded compliment, every icy glance, every pointed comment. She'd critique my appearance, too simple, too sweet but unrefined, and constantly reminded Ryan of the kind of woman he should be with. One who could navigate their elite social circles, someone worthy of the family legacy. I tried to shrug it off, convinced myself it was just a phase. Maybe she was just overprotective, and if I proved myself, she'd come around. But Judith was a master of wearing masks. Around Ryan, she was all warmth and grace. The perfect, doting mother. She'd never openly criticize me when he was present. Instead, she used veiled remarks and subtle digs. When I finally worked up the courage to bring it up to Ryan, he dismissed it with, "She just needs time, Sarah. She's not trying to hurt you." I wanted so badly to believe him, so I let it slide. Things only spiraled from there. As we got serious about planning our wedding, Judith's coldness sharpened into outright hostility. One night, while Ryan was out, she cornered me in the hallway. Her voice was calm, but her words were like daggers. "You're not fooling anyone. Ryan might be in love, but I know girls like you, clinging to the first rich guy who looks your way." I stood there, stunned and speechless. I had never given her a single reason to doubt my intentions, but it didn't matter. Judith had already decided I was the villain in her story. I told myself I could live with it. That love would be enough. But with every encounter, every harsh word, her cruelty chipped away at me. I started to question how much more I could take. Then came the night I called my best friend, Erica, my lifeline when things got overwhelming. "I don't know what to do anymore," I told her, pacing my apartment. "She treats me like I'm some kind of fraud. Like I'm waiting to betray Ryan." Erica's voice came through the phone, steady and reassuring. "She's projecting her own insecurities, Sarah. You've done everything to make peace. This is about her, not you." I sank into the couch, feeling the heaviness settle in my chest. "It's not just the things she says to me, Erica. She's poisoning Ryan's view of me too. I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this. I love him, but it's like I'm in a war I didn't sign up for, and I'm losing." "Did you tell Ryan everything?" Erica asked gently. I paused. "Not exactly. I brought it up a few times, but he just brushes it off. He doesn't see how she really acts when he's not there." Erica's tone softened. "Sarah, he cares about you. He deserves to know the truth." "I know," I murmured, "but what if telling him only makes things worse?" The following days weren't any easier. I kept trying to find the right moment to talk to Ryan about his mother, but every time I approached the topic, I froze. He already had so much on his plate, his job, the wedding planning, staying committed to sobriety. The last thing I wanted was to pile on more. One evening, I met Erica at our usual coffee spot, hoping she'd give me the clarity I needed. Do you think I'm just imagining things? I asked, stirring my tea, the anxiety pressing against my ribs. Judith's been acting more intense lately, like she's scheming something, but I can't quite figure out what. Erica barely glanced up from her phone before replying. I don't know, maybe you're reading too much into it. She's his mom. Moms can be a handful sometimes. Her tone caught me off guard. Erica had always been the first to support me where Judith was concerned. So, you think I'm overreacting? She shrugged, sipping her latte. It's not like she's done anything extreme. Maybe she's just being overprotective, like Ryan says. Her response didn't sit right with me. It felt dismissive, like she wasn't really hearing me. At the time, I brushed it off, maybe she was tired or distracted. But in hindsight, that was the moment when things began to shift. In the following weeks, Erica grew more distant. It wasn't just the strange responses, she started dodging my calls, took hours to answer messages, or ignored them altogether. When we did speak, her attention was elsewhere, like she wasn't really present. I tried not to take it personally, people go through stuff, but it still stung. Erica had always been the one constant in my life, the friend who had my back no matter what. Now, when I needed her most, she felt miles away. Meanwhile, Judith seemed to sense the rift. She laid it on thick around Ryan, sweet-talking him while subtly undermining me. I overheard her once saying, "Ryan, you deserve someone who truly fits into our world, someone who lifts you up, not weighs you down." I felt like the walls were closing in. For the first time, I felt completely isolated. Then one afternoon, Ryan said his mom had invited us for tea. She says she's trying to make an effort, he told me, hopeful. Maybe she's finally coming around. I didn't believe her sudden change of heart, but for Ryan's sake, I agreed. If there was even a slim chance she was willing to change, I wanted to give her that opportunity. As soon as we arrived, I was already tense. Judith welcomed us with her usual too-sweet smile, but the moment I stepped into the living room, my stomach turned. Sitting there comfortably on the couch, sipping tea like it was her second home, was Erica. "Sarah," she said, pretending to be surprised, though I caught the nervous flicker in her eyes as they darted toward Judith. What a surprise. I was just chatting with Judith. I froze, cutting a glance toward Ryan, who looked puzzled but not alarmed. What's this about? I asked, my voice strained and uncertain. Judith's smile spread just a bit too wide. I thought it would be lovely for all of us to sit down for a little chat. Erica's been quite helpful lately. Something shifted in the atmosphere, like the air had thickened, pressing in from all sides. I lowered myself into the chair slowly, uneasy. I didn't realize you two even knew each other, I said carefully, eyes darting between Judith and Erica. Judith gave a small shrug, playing nonchalant. Oh, we've run into each other a few times, she replied, reaching for her tea with practiced grace. Erica has been such a blessing. It's always heartening to see someone who truly has Ryan's best interests at heart. The words landed like lead. My stomach turned uneasily. I glanced at Erica, hoping for some kind of explanation. She avoided my gaze, her shoulders tense. It just sort of happened, she said softly. Judith's been a good person to talk to. Talk to about what? The vibe was all wrong, but Ryan didn't seem to pick up on it. He looked relaxed, sipping his tea, completely unaware of the storm clouds gathering right over his head. Judith placed her cup down with a soft clink and leaned back, a glint in her eye as she turned to Erica. Now that we're all here, she said, her voice light but layered with intent, I think this is the perfect moment to clear the air. Erica, darling, maybe you should tell Ryan what you shared with me. My stomach dropped like a stone. What are you talking about? I asked, my voice rising as I looked between the two of them. Erica shifted uncomfortably in her seat, twisting her fingers around her cup. Her expression was heavy as she looked toward Ryan. I didn't want to say anything before, but I just couldn't stay quiet. She paused, clearly feeding off Judith's silent nod of approval. I saw Sarah with another man. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the hammering of my heart. What? I gasped. That's a lie. Erica, you know that's not true. Ryan turned to look at me, the shock and hurt flashing across his face. Sarah. Erica took a deep breath, voice quivering as if the weight of her words was crushing her. It was a few weeks ago. I was downtown, grabbing a coffee, and I saw Sarah at this little bistro with some guy. They looked close, laughing, touching, even kissing. I didn't want to believe it either, but I couldn't pretend I didn't see it. I felt like the floor had given out beneath me. This is insane, I said, my voice cracking. Erica, none of that ever happened. Why would you make this up? She finally met my eyes, and for the briefest moment, something flickered there. Was it guilt? Regret? But just as quickly, her expression hardened again. I'm not making it up, Sarah. I stayed quiet for as long as I could, but Ryan deserves to know the truth. A lie? I echoed, my voice cracking as tears streamed uncontrollably down my cheeks. You're supposed to be my best friend. Why are you doing this? I've never betrayed Ryan, never. You know me. Ryan shot up from his chair, the leg screeching loudly against the floor. His hands trembled as he turned toward Erica. Are you absolutely sure? He asked, his voice taut with pain and disbelief. I'm sure, Erica replied, her voice calm but unwavering. I saw it myself. I'm sorry, Ryan. I just thought you had the right to know. My heart sank. I couldn't stop crying. It felt like the walls were caving in on me. Ryan, please, I begged, reaching for his hand like a lifeline. You have to believe me. I don't understand why she's saying this. It's not true. I love you, I'd never do something like this. He recoiled, yanking his hand away, his eyes blazing with hurt and fury. How could you, Sarah, he shouted. After everything we've been through, how could you lie to me like this? I didn't, I whispered, but he cut me off sharply. Just leave. Now, he snapped, voice shaking. I don't even want to look at you. I stood there frozen, my knees weak, my heart in pieces. I turned to Erica, silently pleading with her to speak the truth, to stop this madness. But she wouldn't even meet my gaze. She stared down at her coffee cup, silent and cold. Without another word, I grabbed my bag and stumbled out, my vision blurred by tears. I didn't understand what had just happened. I couldn't comprehend why Erica, my best friend, would turn on me like this. All I knew was that everything I cared about had just fallen apart. The days that followed were a haze of crying and desperation. I called and texted Ryan relentlessly, even went to his apartment, hoping he'd give me a chance to explain. But he never answered. Once or twice, I heard faint footsteps inside, but the door stayed closed. I'd stand on his doorstep, fingers trembling as I typed yet another text, please, Ryan. Just hear me out. You know who I am. You know I would never do this. But every message remained unopened, a cruel reminder that I was being shut out. I reached out to Erica, too. I begged for the truth, pleaded for an explanation. She ignored every call. When I finally poured my heart into a long message asking her why, I got nothing back. Just silence. Her betrayal stung almost as deeply as losing Ryan. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying that awful scene at Judith's house, the way Ryan looked at me like I was a stranger, like he hated me. That image haunted me. It felt like my entire world had been ripped away, and no matter how hard I tried, there was no stitching it back together. And even through my heartbreak, I couldn't stop thinking about Ryan. Yes, I was shattered, but so was he. He hadn't just been manipulated, he was the one Judith had aimed to hurt all along. Her lies didn't just destroy us, they crushed him, too. I made another attempt to reach Ryan, determined this time to break through the wall between us. But it was no use. Every call I made went unanswered, straight to voicemail. My messages remained unread, sitting there like unopened doors. I even went by his apartment, knocked on the door with hope in my chest, but no one answered. The silence wrapped around me like a heavy fog, and it was suffocating. Meanwhile, updates from Alex and a few others started coming in, and they were increasingly concerning. Ryan wasn't just skipping work anymore, he was avoiding his recovery meetings, steering clear of his closest friends, and hanging around the worst parts of the city. The man they described wasn't the Ryan I knew. He was spiraling, slipping into a place I wasn't sure I could reach. Then one night, there was a knock at my door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I hesitated. When I finally opened it, I was stunned to see Judith standing there. But this wasn't the Judith I remembered, the polished, distant woman who always had a calculated tone in her voice. This woman looked like she'd unraveled completely. Her hair was unkempt, her face pale, her eyes swollen and red from what looked like hours of crying. "Sarah," she said, her voice trembling. "Please. I need your help." I stood there in disbelief. "Judith," I replied, my voice sharp and cold, "why are you here?" She didn't answer at first. She just stepped inside without waiting for permission, wringing her hands as though they were the only things keeping her together. "It's Ryan," she said at last, her voice cracking. "He's in a bad place. He's using again, and I don't know how to help him." I crossed my arms, my resentment rising like bile. "And what do you expect me to do about that? You made your opinion of me pretty clear." Her eyes filled with fresh tears, and she collapsed into the nearest chair. "I was wrong," she whispered, barely able to get the words out. "About everything. I thought I was doing what was best for him, but all I did was push him into this. I broke you both." Her hands shook as she tried to hold herself together, her tears falling freely now. "Sarah, I've made a huge mistake. I convinced myself I was protecting him, but all I've done is hurt the one person who's ever truly been there for him." I didn't respond, just stood there as she unraveled in front of me. The woman I once feared and loathed had fallen apart completely. "I lied," she said after a long pause, her voice barely a whisper. "About the affair, about Erica. It was all a lie. I made it up." My heart stopped. "You, what?" I asked, stunned. "I paid her," she confessed, her voice breaking. "I gave Erica $100,000 to say those things, to convince Ryan you were cheating on him. I thought if I could make him believe it, he'd break up with you. I thought I was helping him. I was so wrong." Her eyes met mine, desperate and shattered. "You were the best thing in his life, and I couldn't see it until it was too late." I shook my head slowly, fury rising with every breath. "You didn't just hurt me, Judith, you broke him. Do you even realize what he's become because of all this? He's using again. He's spiraling. And all of it traces back to the lies you fed him." Judith's quiet sobs erupted into uncontrollable weeping as she buried her face in her hands. "I know," she rasped through the tears. "I know what I've done, and I can't take it back. But please, Sarah, please help him. You're the only one he listens to. He still loves you. You're the only one who can reach him now." I stood motionless, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, rage, heartbreak, and a love I'd tried so hard to silence. Her tear-streaked face lifted toward me again, full of remorse. "I'll do whatever it takes," she said. "I'll confess. I'll come clean about everything. Just don't give up on him. He needs you." The weight of her words crashed over me, and for a long moment, I couldn't respond. Judith, the same woman who had twisted the truth until I couldn't breathe, who had dragged my name through the mud and nearly shattered my world, was now begging for my help, sitting on my couch with nothing left but guilt. She reached a trembling hand toward me, fingers grasping at the space between us like she could pull me closer. "Sarah," she whispered again, her voice shaking, "even when he's at his worst, he still calls for you. You're always on his mind." Something twisted painfully in my chest. I didn't speak. I couldn't. I was still trying to make sense of everything. But Judith pressed on, her voice urgent and raw. "You were the reason he stayed sober. You gave him a future to believe in. And now that you're gone, he's lost. Please. I'm begging you, I'll do anything to undo the damage I caused. I inhaled sharply, trying to calm the storm raging inside me. Her desperation clung to the air like smoke. And as much as I wanted to walk away, to let her live with the consequences of her cruelty, I couldn't. Not when it came to Ryan. I'll help, I said quietly, my voice barely steady. Her face flooded with relief, but I lifted a hand to keep her from saying anything more. But let's get something straight, I'm not doing this for you, Judith. I'm doing it for Ryan. I love him. I always have. But what you did, I'll never forget it. I understand, she whispered, her voice breaking again. And I'll do everything I can to fix it. I'll tell him the truth, I swear. Whatever it takes, just help me bring him back. I gave a small nod, though my heart was already aching all over again. I'll talk to him, I said, more firmly this time. But don't mistake this for forgiveness. It's going to take time. A lot of time, for him to recover, and for me to even begin healing. Judith wiped at her face, nodding over and over, her voice barely above a whisper. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sarah. When she finally left, I stood in silence, swallowed by a strange mix of dread and hope. I didn't know what Ryan would say. I didn't know if we could ever put the pieces back together. But one thing was clear, I wasn't going to sit back and watch him fall apart. Not when I still had the strength to fight for him. The following day, Judith came to pick me up, and the drive to Ryan's place was unbearably tense. She kept her eyes glued to the road, her grip on the steering wheel so tight her knuckles turned ghost white. The silence between us was thick, filled with anxiety and dread. I sat beside her, wringing my hands, my stomach churning with nervous energy as I braced for what was to come. When we finally arrived, Judith knocked gently on the door, her fingers visibly trembling. For a second, I thought he might not answer, but then we heard the lock turn and the door opened slowly. Ryan appeared, looking utterly drained. His eyes were puffy and red, his complexion pale and worn. My heart sank seeing him like that. He glanced at Judith, then at me, and his expression hardened instantly. What now? He said coldly, standing firmly in the doorway as if shielding himself from us. I'm done with both of you and whatever drama you brought. Judith visibly recoiled, taking a shaky breath. She held her handbag like a lifeline. Ryan, she said softly, her voice barely audible. That's why I'm here. Because of everything I did, and everything I need to admit. Ryan's eyes narrowed with suspicion. What are you talking about? She stepped a little closer, her voice shaking. I lied, Ryan. About Sarah. About everything. She never cheated. I fabricated the whole thing and paid Erica to say those things. I thought I was doing the right thing, that I was protecting you, but I see now how horribly wrong I was. Shock swept over Ryan's face. His arms dropped to his sides. You paid Erica? He repeated, stunned. You made the whole thing up? Why would you do that? Tears spilled down Judith's cheeks as she covered her face. Because I didn't think she was right for you. I thought I knew better. I didn't realize how much she meant to you, how much you meant to each other. I'm so sorry, Ryan. Please forgive me. He stepped back, overwhelmed, trying to process the weight of her confession. His eyes turned to me, filled with raw regret and confusion. Sarah, is that true? I nodded through my tears. Yes, Ryan. I tried to explain. But you wouldn't hear me out. He stared at me for a long, heavy moment. And in that silence, I saw the man I once knew, the man who loved me. His mouth quivered before curling into a faint, broken smile. You were telling the truth, he whispered hoarsely. You never betrayed me, and you never stopped believing in us. Fresh tears rolled down my face as I nodded. Never. I never stopped loving you. Then, without another word, he stepped forward and wrapped his arms around me, holding me like he was afraid to let go. His whole body shook as we clung to each other, letting the weight of all the hurt and misunderstanding melt away. I'm so sorry, he murmured against my skin. I should have trusted you. I should have never doubted what we had. I pulled back just enough to meet his gaze, my tears still falling but my smile steady. It's okay, I whispered. We're here now. And then, after what felt like forever, he kissed me, gentle and slow, like he didn't want to miss a single second. In that moment, the hurt, the betrayal, the heartbreak, it all faded into the background. All that mattered was that we had found our way back to each other. Even now, when I look back, I still feel the weight of everything we endured. The wounds left by lies and deception haven't fully healed. I spent countless nights doubting myself, trying to understand how people I trusted could hurt me so deeply. Erica, especially, someone I thought of as family. She was my closest friend, and she traded my trust for a paycheck. I honestly don't know if forgiveness is possible. As for Judith, that's a more complicated story. She's changed. There's remorse in the way she talks to me now, a softness that was never there before. I think she finally sees the love between Ryan and me for what it truly is. I don't hate her anymore. I've let go of that. What she did was unforgivable, but she came to me with the truth, and maybe, just maybe, she helped us begin again. And Ryan? He's everything. Seeing him smile, watching him fight for his recovery, it means the world to me. He's putting in the work, and I'm walking beside him through it all. We're building something new, something stronger than before. I don't know what's ahead, but I do know this, we've come out the other side stronger. Our love has been tested and tried, and it's still standing. If I've learned anything from all of this, it's that real love isn't easy. It's messy, it's painful, and sometimes it breaks you. But when it's real, truly real, it can mend even the deepest cracks. This is the start of a new chapter for us, and for the first time in a long while, I feel something I thought I'd lost. Hope. If this story touched you, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. It helps us keep sharing stories that matter, and it means the world to us. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.